What's going on, guys? It's Paul here, and I never really expected to be doing a dedicated review of a battery bank on this outdoor channel. However, this is the Nitecore NB10000, which Nitecore claims is the lightest and most compact 10 amp hour battery bank in the world. So it's definitely going to be appealing to backpackers. That's why I'm reviewing it on this channel. And with all of that said, let's get into the review. So to just quickly go over what comes in the box, you get some paperwork, it's just instructions, warranty service card. There is a USB-C to USB-A cable with a fancy little Nitecore Velcro strap. And then you of course get the battery bank itself. Pretty simple. Now getting into the specs, starting with the weight, because that's really the claim to fame for this battery bank. According to my scale, it weighs 5.33 ounces or 151 grams. For comparison, I have the other two battery banks that I have used backpacking and just daily use in the past, which is this iHome 10 amp hour battery bank, and it weighs 8.34 ounces or 236 grams. And then I also have this Anker 5000 milliamp hour, which weighs 4.72 ounces or 134 grams. As for the size, it has a width of 2.33 inches or 59.2 millimeters. It has a thickness of 0.41 inches or 10.4 millimeters, and it has a length of about 4.75 inches or 120.7 millimeters. For size comparison, here it is next to a US $1 bill. And speaking of dollar bills, if you would like to purchase one of these, you will need about 60 of them. As for the construction of the battery bank, the reason that Nitecore was able to get it so light is that the main frame is a carbon composite, and then on both sides it has a carbon fiber panel. Now, in addition to being compact and very lightweight, the other thing that makes this great for backpackers is that it is IPX5 water resistant. So it's not submersible, it is supposed to be basically rainproof. Personally, I would recommend still keeping it in a dry bag if you can, just because you don't want to risk it. But with that said, if your pack gets a little wet, or say you have a leak or heavy condensation in your tent at night, you should be perfectly fine. So taking a closer look at the battery bank, starting with the inputs and outputs, you can see that there is a USB-A port and a USB-C port. So the USB-A is output only, so that's only for charging other devices, but the USB-C port is in and out. So that's how you charge this battery bank, through the USB-C, but then you can also use both outlets simultaneously as an output, so you can charge two devices at once. Right next to the two USB ports, we have the power button and power indicator. Now I'm going to come back to that a little bit later because there is something there that I've had an issue with, but for right now I'll continue moving around the outside of the power bank. Like 99% of the other power banks out there, it is made in China. On the back, we just have some simple branding. Up at the top here, you can see the capacity of 10,000 milliamp hours at 3.85 volts and the rated energy of 6,400 milliamp hours at 5 volts. So a quick little fact about power banks in general, because as far as I know, this applies to all USB power banks. The cells that they use on the inside of the power bank are typically about 3.7 volts, or in this case, 3.85 volts. And as you may know, USB uses a standard 5 volts. So in order to up that voltage, there is a conversion circuit on the inside of the power bank that ups that voltage. But when you do that, there are various losses in capacity. Now that's not anything exclusive to Nitecore. If you have a 10 amp hour battery bank, chances are your usable capacity is only between 6 and 7 amp hours. But most manufacturers do not even list that on their product, so I have a lot of respect for Nitecore for actually listing the rated energy, the usable capacity, on their battery bank. Now speaking of that usable capacity, when I first saw how much lighter this battery bank was compared to other 10 amp hour battery banks, I was immediately skeptical about the size of the battery that they're using. I was kind of wondering if it's actually as high of a capacity as they say it is. And if you've followed this channel for any length of time, you know that I like data. So I connected this to a USB multimeter and I did a discharge test, and from a full charge I was able to get 6,315 milliamp hours out of this battery, which is really close to their rated capacity of 6,400 milliamp hours. So that at least confirms that yes, this is in fact a 10 amp hour battery bank. As for the charging rates, you can see listed on the side the various amperage and voltage levels for input and output. So Nitecore claims that you can do up to 18 watt charging and discharging with the NB10000, but of course I wanted to do my own testing of those claims. So I tested and I was successfully able to discharge, meaning I was charging another device from this power bank, successfully at 5 volts at about 3 amps, all the way up to the 12 volts at 1.5 amps. So I confirmed those specs, and then I also did some charge testing of the power bank, and of course I was able to easily, with a standard charger, charge at 5 volts at 2.4 amps, and when I did that, I had a charging time from completely dead to fully charged of 4 hours and 15 minutes. But using an 18 watt charger, I was able to get 9 volts at 2 amps, and in that case it shaved about an hour off, so it was 3 hours and 15 minutes for a full charge using that quick charge feature. So speaking of the charge level, as I promised, let's talk about this power button and power indicator. Now, I like the power button because it's not too difficult to press, but at the same time it's not so sensitive that I'm worried about it accidentally getting turned on while it's inside my pack. However, when I press this, you can see the dots there. That is the power indicator for this battery bank. The first time that I powered this on, I saw the 3 dots going roughly halfway across that power button, and I thought, okay, I have about a 50% charge. But then I looked at the instructions, and no, those 3 dots means it's at a full charge. You only have 3 lights as your power indicator. That means that you are measuring your power level in increments of 33%. And I would prefer to be able to tell a little bit more precisely the power level that I have remaining. So I would have liked to see at least 4 or preferably 5. Now, when the power bank is near death, that last LED does flash, so you know that you're about to run out of juice. But otherwise, it's still fairly difficult to tell how much power you have remaining with this, both just from the visual sight of how close those LEDs are together, and they're kind of deep down inside that power button, and also the fact that you're limited to just the 3 LEDs. Now, does that make this unusable? I would say absolutely not. The reason I think that that gets to me so much is that this was so close to being what I would probably consider the ultimate power bank for backpacking, and there's just that one setback that's like, man, could have been a lot better. And one more thing to point out with that power indicator is that if you turn it on and then hold it down for a second, you can barely see there's a little white LED light that comes on in the corner there, and when that comes on, that means that you've placed the power bank into low current mode. Now, on the Nitecore website, all that they say about that is that low current mode is for use with your more delicate devices, such as your Bluetooth headphones and smartwatches, but they don't actually say what the low current mode does. So I did some testing of my own, and I had this charging my iPad at 2.4 amps, and I engaged the low current mode, and nothing changed. So it doesn't actually change the output of the battery bank. What I ultimately found is that the low current mode just prevents the power bank from powering off automatically. So if you just press the power indicator, after 30 to 45 seconds, if it does not detect any current being drawn from the battery, it powers off automatically. And the same thing happens if you, say, charge your cell phone. Once the phone gets to a full charge, it detects that there's no current being drawn, and then the power bank powers off to save the remaining juice. Well, what happens is that with some devices, such as headphones and smartwatches, they draw such low current that the power bank still switches off automatically. It doesn't detect that little bit of current that's being drawn. So putting it in low current mode just forces the power bank to stay on. Now, I did some testing with this charging my Jaybird Vista Bluetooth headphones, which drew 0.1 amps, and it continued to charge those even without being in low current mode. So I don't know exactly what the current threshold is for that, but just know that if you try to charge something small and the power bank powers off, just put it in low current mode. But do make sure that you turn that off after you're done, because otherwise this thing will continue to run until the little LED drains the battery. So as for my personal experience using this power bank, I've had it for a little over a month now, and I've used it on one backpacking trip. There was a 3-day, 2-night trip, and also just on a daily basis for charging my devices, and I've been impressed with it. It does exactly what a battery bank is supposed to do, and it charges my devices, and it does it well. I really like that it has the ability to quick charge my iPhone, because I had a situation where I could only leave it plugged in for a few minutes, and I was still able to, from fully dead, get my iPhone up to about 35%. So that's helpful. And I was also impressed with it when I took it backpacking, because on the coldest night, I believe it got down to about 37 degrees Fahrenheit, and I had this just in the tent next to me, so it wasn't in my sleeping bag or anything to keep it warm. And the next day I was still able to bring to a full charge my iPhone, my action cam, my headlamp, and my Garmin InReach. So I didn't have the multimeter there to test, but I didn't notice any noticeable drop in capacity. Now, full disclosure, Nitecore did send this out to me for the purpose of doing this review, but they are not sponsoring this video. They didn't get to review any portion of it before posting, and all of these thoughts and opinions have been entirely my own. Now, if you're wondering if I would recommend that you spend your hard-earned money on this power bank, I would say it depends. If you are just a casual user looking to charge devices at the office and you just happen to come across this video, I would say this probably is not your best option, simply because if the weight isn't that big of a deal to you, then you can find something that will do the same as this, but for probably about half the cost. So unless you're looking for something that you can just easily carry around in a pocket, I would say go for something a little bit cheaper. However, if you are a backpacker, I think that $60 is worth it for a solid power bank and the ability to drop a couple of ounces from your pack weight. So I will have a link in the description below if you want to check this out for yourself. And like all of my reviews, I try to periodically come back and update the description if my thoughts at all change after posting this video. So if you're watching this in the future, check the description and see if I've posted any updated information. If you have liked this video and you found it helpful, please leave it a like. It really helps out the channel. You can also subscribe if you would like to see more of my content in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.